Welcome back to the Handlebar Podcast. As you know, this is an honest conversation type of podcast where we talk about faith and practically following Jesus. Before we jump in, there are a few quick things that we want you to know about. First, we love it when you ask us questions. So if you have one, submit it on our website at thehandlebarpodcast.com. Next, if you love the podcast, there are a handful of ways that you can share the love and help continue to support what we do. The first way is through sponsorship. This is a good opportunity to get your message out there via our podcast. Go to the contact form on our website and let's connect. Also, we have merch. It's a great way to support what we're doing and spark fun conversations. If you didn't know, Elissa has a solo album, Wearing a Blindfold and Running, and Sarah Beth dropped a worship album, Foolish Offering. These albums are so good. You can stream it anywhere you listen to music. And lastly, Erin has an incredible book out called Big Jesus. It has wild stories about growing in your faith and walking with Jesus in everyday life. It's so good. Okay, let's jump into today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Handlebar Podcast. I just immediately hit play on these guys. We were in the middle of practicing our English accents. And should I try to do...
You were a little more Australian than
Okay, well,
British,
let me try right here, and then you guys can tell me how it is.
Okay.
So let's say, if this was the start of the podcast, and I hit everybody with a... Oh gosh, now I'm nervous to do it.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Welcome to the Handlebar Podcast. Is that not it?
No, just stop.
No, Sarah Beth doesn't like that.
We have too many people that listen from around the world. You need to just stop.
Why?
You got to do them proud.
I'm proud. I'm proud to practice my English.
We're so proud of our
to
British.
Be an American.
Oh. Hey, we are back. We are back with episode 2 of the Sermon on the Mount. And if you guys remember when we did episode 1, I think our original plan was to try to do all of the Beatitudes in one episode.
Joke's on us.
And joke's on us because we barely got through.
As soon as we started, it was like, whoop. Like,
Blessed are the
these
poor in
are
spirit.
deep.
Yeah, and it was like all of a sudden we'd been talking for 45 minutes and we thought, oh gosh, we've just committed to an 8-part series just on the Beatitudes. We were going to hit the whole Sermon on the Mount.
This Beata changed my life.
This Beata changed my life.
I need to talk about
and
this.
So, quick recap.
Whoa. That is clever.
I think that just hit me, but
There's layers to that I'm not going to unpack right now.
Don't unpack it. So quick recap. We talked about the 8 Beatitudes being like 8 flowers to cultivate in the garden of our heart. Then we went really deep on Blessed are the poor in spirit. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen. It's the previous one before this one. Today we're going to jump in and we are going to talk about the second Beatitude, which is Blessed are those who mourn. I just want to say right out of the gates, I'm going to read verse 1 of Matthew 5. If you do not know, the Beatitudes are found in the introduction of Matthew 5. This is probably Jesus' most popular and powerful sermon. This is also one of his first public sermons with the multitudes. Verse 1, it says, "And seeing the multitudes, Jesus went up on a mountain, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him, and then he opened his mouth, and he taught them." And all 8 of these things Jesus is going to teach are I was thinking about this morning as I was praying for this episode and just praying for the Beatitudes, knew we were about to talk about it, and I was thinking about how anti-cultural everything Jesus was about to share is.
Yes.
Like how it was so, what are you talking about? Like, I've never heard something like this. Like, in the time of the culture, it just was it would have been like foreign language.
It's like upside down pretty much.
Upside down, yeah. And just, and kind of you're seeing within God's heart, there's all this talk, as Rafi would say, around what moves him. Something Rafi said to me yesterday, there's all this talk, what moves him, what moves the Lord's heart. But you see in the Beatitudes, what moves God's heart in a way that oftentimes man doesn't prioritize. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could just jump in with Blessed are those who mourn. I've already set a timer. Whoa, look at that. Praise God. Just for us, kind of for reference. But here comes Jesus. Blessed are those who mourn. I don't know if anyone wants to kick us off with that one specifically.
Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I think this is really beautiful because I think in life it's so easy to not give yourself permission to feel and to actually be sad about things, you know, like, but I think you never really like move forward if you don't actually like feel the feelings. And I think it's really beautiful that, like, I know for me, I don't want to feel feelings because I'm afraid that I won't feel anything else. That makes sense. It's like, well, if I feel this, what if I stay there forever? Or what if it just like gets worse? Or there's fear attached to feeling sad, or experiencing
like
grief,
it's a rabbit hole
or
that if you go down,
that
are
I
you
go
getting out?
down, I'm just gonna lose myself in it. And I think it's so beautiful of the Lord to say, like, no, when you go there, like, there's comfort for you there, because the lie is like you're just there alone. But then he's saying, like, no, like, you know, like, I will bless that place. I will comfort you in that place. I won't leave you there. And I think it's really beautiful because you get to meet God in a way that I think you can only see this side of his face when you let yourself mourn. You know, I think there are certain sides of him you can only experience when you let him into, you know, those different places of your own life.
Place of deep pain.
Yeah, a place of deep pain or
unprocessed
Place
grief.
that we don't
yeah.
want to go normally. It reminds me of something you said a couple years ago at this point, which is crazy to say, but you said God can't heal what I hide.
Yeah.
In other words, I can't be comforted. I can't experience the comfort of the Holy Spirit unless I mourn. And that's going to look different for everyone. Like, personally, I have yet to lose someone that's super close to me. My grandparents are alive, my parents. So I've yet to, I know, Rafi, you lost your dad as a young kid. I have yet to experience that type of mourning. But I feel like,
of deep loss.
yes, deep loss. But there's different types of mourning is what I'm getting
For sure,
at.
yeah.
But it's like, if I don't let myself mourn, no matter what it is, I won't experience the comfort of the Holy Spirit. One of our pastors a few weeks ago said this as she was preaching. She said this profound little line that honestly just immediately brought tears to my eyes. She said, if you would just mourn a little, he would comfort you. If you would just let yourself mourn. And that hit me because I'm like, I'm in my season of life. I'm go as a mom. I'm trying to get everyone fed, dressed, whatever. But if I would just let myself feel, even in those moments, you know, or for someone that's not a mom, like you're in a corporate job or you're in ministry, instead of moving past those little feelings or big feelings so quickly, if we would just let ourselves feel and mourn, he would meet us. That really touched me. When she said that, I was like, oh, if I would just let myself mourn, you would comfort me.
Well, mourning, you know, you cannot mourn without vulnerability. It requires so much vulnerability to mourn, because you're actually allowing yourself to go to the place that you said it, that we often don't want to go.
Yeah,
I
we
think
often
of the
just want
place
to
of, you know, when we're just walking in daily life and maybe we find a riff in our marriage, or maybe I find something that I get bothered with in the kids, and all of a sudden I'm irritated, I'm annoyed. You know, we have the inside joke about I'm irritated junior.
Look at me, I'm irritated junior.
And we saw a meme one time that was like, you know, my dad was always, as the meme said, my dad was always irritated. Now look at me, I'm irritated junior. As an adult, I'm irritated junior.
So anytime you get irritated, I'm like, irritated junior.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm irritated junior. But when I really start processing, why am I responding this way? Why am I bothered by you? Why am I so annoyed right now with our kids? Normally I'll say something like, gosh, I'm realizing a part in my heart the Lord needs to touch.
Yes.
Or oftentimes it's maybe a place of inner healing that I'm realizing I think I need to go to inner healing. But very rarely in that moment do I go there. It's almost like I need to prepare myself to go there, because it requires so much vulnerability to actually allow yourself to walk through the places of pain that are in your heart, the places that you need to mourn, or you know, the word mourn, I really like thinking of unprocessed emotion.
Yeah. Another
of
word
that,
for mourn in Blue Letter Bible is sorrow.
I had looked it up too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, look at us.
Yeah, look at us.
Oh, cuties.
Yeah, it
Are you
means,
on Penthos?
yeah,
I went to the root.
Yeah.
Ooh, she went to the root.
She said, I don't mess around with that.
She went to
when
the
it gives
core.
you the definition,
Surface
but it
level.
says from this word, and then you click on that one, and you're like,
the
The
root.
Strongs.
You know, we've a core teaching for us as we were just being raised up, and you know, our local church in our 20s was hearing
In the 20s.
In the 20s is crazy.
In the olden days.
Well, I think about how often Miller has
The
gotten
90s
up,
felt like the 20s.
and he's given the message around the disciples. Jesus,
Yes.
do not let your heart be troubled. And then that's in the upper room. Then they go to the garden, and it says that they're sleeping from sorrow. That their heart is sleeping from sorrow. In other words, because of the words they received from Jesus that they didn't understand. I think that's a big one for me. You were talking about deep loss, but for the disciples, it was misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It was, we're confused. We're not following you. We don't understand.
Disappointment.
Which, how often is that so relevant in the
Yeah.
Christian faith, especially with the Lord? Lord, I don't understand. I'm not in following you, I'm not following what you're trying to tell me. I don't quite understand your leadership. I'm like, what is happening? Why are we here? And then all of a sudden your heart is sorrowful, oftentimes because of disappointment and unmet expectations. And,
Yeah.
and what we can do if we do not mourn that is we shut our hearts down, we grow jaded, we stiff-arm the church. Ultimately, you start deconstructing, you're no longer walking with Jesus, but it all oftentimes started from sorrow that was bred by unprocessed disappointment and unmet expectations.
I just think it's interesting that he says, this is a tension for me, and I want to open it up for conversation, that he says, do not let your hearts be troubled.
Mm-hmm.
But blessed are those who mourn, for they'll be comforted.
Yeah.
Don't you think? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's unpack that. Like, what's the difference between letting my heart be troubled and mourning?
I'll throw this in, and then I'd love to hear what Alyssa says, because I feel like you have something really profound to say.
I'm just listening.
But I'm thinking about the difference
Like,
between
I could act like I knew what it
a
meant.
troubled heart to me is an anxious heart.
Okay.
A troubled heart to me is a heart that is sick. But mourning to me is actually the sign of a healthy heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're mourning, you have not let that pain produce sickness within you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're mourning, you're rightfully, like I think oftentimes that's why maybe we haven't been through deep loss of a close loved one, but we have been through loss.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes when you walk through that level of loss, you've got to, any level, whether it's grand or small, you've got to actually let your heart feel the pain of a goodbye. You've got to let your heart feel the pain of, maybe it's not a loved one, maybe it's the loss of a dream, maybe it's the loss of something you thought would happen through running with a group of friends, and then all of a sudden, that's not how life turned out or played out. If you don't process that, your heart's going to grow sick, which is what I think is a troubled heart. Okay. It's like all of a sudden your heart is troubled because it's sick. It's affecting you completely on the outside, on the external, the way you're showing up with people, the way you're not showing up with people, versus when you're mourning, you're rightfully like bringing all of that you feel on the inside rightly to the Lord. You're not avoiding it. You're not acting like it's not there.
So when I don't let myself mourn or feel sorrow, I will end up with a troubled heart.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the start of your heart growing troubled, because the Lord is not saying don't let your heart feel.
Yeah.
I guess I'm like, we could try to define mourning in not like relevant ways, but do you know what I mean? It's like people might be saying, well, what do you mean by mourn?
I think like a way that I'm learning to see this is an opinion, but like something that helps me when I see blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. For me, I read that as like, Elissa, blessed are you if you don't avoid.
Ooh, that's
like,
good. There you go.
Just don't avoid what you're feeling. You have the Holy Spirit, who is the Spirit of truth, who Jesus said would remind me of the truth and who would comfort me in my brokenness. And so I think in these places, it's like, I think mourning has so many layers. You have disappointment, which disappointment is oftentimes, it just comes from unmet expectations. It can come from, I had this perspective and now I realize like, oh my gosh, I was so wrong in my perspective, and now I have this painful gaining of reality, but I'm actually being led by the Spirit into the truth. Yes. Like reality is the truth. Yeah. And so it's like, where I had this expectation that maybe wasn't the best thing, or maybe you're just simply disappointed because like you didn't have a wrong perspective, you just got betrayed. You just got treated wrongly. Like something, you were just, a receiver of someone having a bad day, and it had nothing to do with you had a false expectation. It's why you're disappointed. Where it's like, no, like I think in close relationships and some things, like, there are expectations that you should have on one another of how you should treat each other. And if those lines get crossed, then say something, you know? And so I think I'm learning, like, just not to avoid if something's coming up, if a little flutter of emotion is coming up, whether it's anger, whether it's disappointment or hurt. And it's like, ooh, that hurt. Like, I don't want to avoid if something hurt, because then hurt leads to sadness, depression, anxiety, anger.
Calloused heart.
Yeah, it's like all those, like, you know, it starts with like being hurt by something, and then you figuring out your own way to comfort yourself.
Yeah.
When, you know, the Lord is saying, like, no, my comfort here is what gets you through this mourning. Your own comfort does not heal your own mourning.
Yes.
Only Christ's comfort is what I believe moves you through from mourning into what he calls his joy.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
not all of a sudden I'm just happy now. Like, if you've ever experienced great loss, that's there forever. But you have someone who's there with you, who gives you a peace that passes understanding, and a joy that you're like, I shouldn't feel this at times, but like I'm continually giving my heart, and I'm not avoiding when, dang, I miss this person again today, and I'm gonna miss them throughout my whole life.
Yes.
But I'm not going to avoid that because, oh, this is an uncomfortable feeling, or, you know, it's been years and why does this still hurt me, or whatever.
Wow.
I think I'm just learning to do my best to not avoid when an emotion comes up, and I'm an incredible avoider. I often don't even know I'm avoiding what I'm feeling until I'm irritated, or I'm annoyed, or I'm short and I'm
It's the
snappy,
indicator.
or like a car cuts me off in Dallas traffic and I'm holding on to my salvation by a thread. You know what I mean? Or I'm like, wow, like I'm actually...
Something's going on there.
Yeah, something's going on. Like, I'm not just irritated by this car. Like, I need to look back, you know, and be like, wow. So...
Wow, that's
I get
actually
it.
really good, though.
What
Yeah.
you said
Yeah.
earlier about a troubled heart, I heard someone describe anxiety that way. Where
That's Strong's definition of trouble.
Oh, really?
To be anxious.
Yeah,
Wow.
they said, I
crazy.
forget who it was, but they were saying typically anxiety is coming from something that you can or feel the need to do something about that you're not doing something about, or you can't do something about. So it's like there's this thing that actually does need some attention, but it's not being attended to. And then so it just creates anxiety. It's just like, oh, this is endless cycle of just like playing out what could happen that's bad. And it's really your heart is longing to do something about that thing. And so it's working really hard to prevent you from feeling pain or something, but it has to do with what you are not doing. Anxiety is a fruit of something that's not happening. If that makes sense. And I'm thinking of a time where
Wow.
for me, this scripture makes me think of the time where my heart was the most shut down. And I remember the job I had at the time. I remember because of that job, I would be in my car and I would just like park the car and sit there for like hours.
This is when you were door to door.
Yes. And I would fill my like quota for the day, and I would just sit in the car and just like, I was completely shut down. And there was so much sadness that was like, but I didn't even know it was there by then, because it had just been calloused over like multiple times, and I was just...
This was kind of the bed you were sleeping in at this point.
Yes, and I was like seeking to comfort it through different things, like food or watching things, or just like literally anything I could do to distract myself from what I actually might be thinking or feeling. That was the scariest thing to consider. And when I think of this passage also, Jesus is talking out of Isaiah 61, where it says, he says, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Where Isaiah says of the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he was anointed me to bring the good news,
To set
to
the captive
comfort
free.
those who mourn.
Yes.
And so it's like something about I'm thinking of even the cultural context. This is a time where people hire mourners for the look of it. Like, it's so... I think what he's challenging is this thing.
Like the facade of
Yes,
mourning.
the facade of mourning.
Because didn't he kick those people out when he went and raised the little girl from the dead? Jairus' daughter.
He had to
He
kick out the
stopped
mourners.
them because he's like, this is I think it's a religious pride. It's something that he's addressing in the culture, but it's pointing towards what I think you can't heal what he hides, or just this whole concept of, for me, the gospel is where your ashes turn to beauty, your mourning turns to joy.
Yeah.
Your mourning is met by the Comforter, and in order for you to be met by the Comforter, you have to be where you actually are. And I would say that what Jesus is inviting us to in this scripture, and what he invited me to, I literally felt like the stone from my heart ripped off when I finally came to him. I had that moment where I just kind of settled down enough to let myself think the thoughts and feel the things that my heart had been trying to feel for years. And one of the things that happened was tears.
Yes.
It was a sign that my heart was like back in the place where it needed to be. Wow. And I think, I just think of that. The tears were a sign that, like, I had wandered so far from where I actually was inside. That moment of when I finally came back, and I was met by someone who had been waiting there. So just that imagery of like, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted, because the Comforter's waiting by your sadness and your mourning. And he's not 100 miles away on Instagram where I was trying to numb it. That's not where he is, because he's kind and he's waiting in the place of where I actually was hurt, where I actually was disappointed. He's never going to leave that place, because he knows for me to get to the Comforter, for me to move into joy, for me to move into beauty from ashes, I've got to grab my ashes and bring them to him.
Yes.
I've got to feel the sadness. He knows how I'm made and how I work, and it's the only way to heal is really through meeting with him. But I just am thinking about how he's waiting there. That's where the Comforter waits for us, is right there in the place where we were hurt.
You said you have to be where you are.
Yeah, where you actually are.
And I, this whole phrase we've been saying, which came from years ago at this point on the podcast, and I think you were the first one to say, Alyssa, God can't heal what you hide. Originally we put that out on Instagram. I don't know if you guys know or remember this, and there was a lot of backlash around that comment. And what does that mean? What does, I want to give a little context, because as I've thought about that phrase, I've actually rephrased it in my own mind as God will not heal what you hide. Because you have the theology cops that come out and they're like, God can do anything,
That's not what we're saying.
Yeah, but I think of Adam in the garden. Eve eats the fruit, she gives it to Adam. Adam eats the fruit, and immediately they hide. And God comes and says, "Where are you?" Which I would love in a minute for you to speak to that. I've heard you say some really powerful things about where God is asking where you are. If you remember what I'm talking about. And
Okay.
But before there, I think it's not until Adam comes out of hiding. It's not until because God knew where Adam was. He knew where Adam was. The question was
Yeah.
not for God. The question was from Adam. Where are you? Because
Yeah.
Adam was where he wasn't. If that makes sense. Adam was in a place hiding instead of being honest and vulnerable before the Lord. I did what you asked me not to do. And instead he's hiding, and God's like, where are you? Why aren't you walking with me as we walk every day? Every day we show up, I show up and we go on this walk. I walk with you in the cool of the day. Here I am. Where are you?
What if he was actually walking beside him physically, and that's where he asked him, "Where are you?" We always think he was like hiding behind a
Which
bush.
is how, that's why I wanted Alyssa to speak, because you kind of said something similar like that before.
Well, I kind of don't remember exactly, but
What I remember you saying, you were preaching and
remind
you
me.
said, I don't want God to ever have to ask me where I am.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes.
And you were saying it in the context of internally where your heart's at.
Yeah, where my heart's at. Yes. Where, like that I would have the courage and vulnerability that he wouldn't wonder where I am. And that I would be able to trust his goodness enough to be like, I feel scared to tell you this. And I mean, I think marriage is helping me do that, where me and Joel will tell each other sometimes, be like, hey, what are you afraid to tell me? And it's like, oh, I feel scared to tell you I feel this. And like we've asked each other that a couple times, where it's like, and normally it has nothing to do with I'm afraid of their response. It has everything to do with, it's just like, what are you going to think of me? And I'm realizing that like God, he does not think about me the way I think about me, you know? And so when I share with him where my heart is at, it just restores like that connection. You know what I mean? It restores that. This is a really terrible example, but it's the only thing I can think about when I think about mourning and coming into joy and being comforted, and anxiety, talking about being troubled. Like, have you ever felt nauseous?
Yes.
Yes,
Like,
it's the worst.
It's the worst feeling. But nausea is a lot like anxiety. It's just hovering. It's terrible.
It's
You
true.
can't function. You don't eat what you need to. You don't do the things you need to.
Yeah.
You're just aware that you're nauseous all the time.
Yes.
And then you're trying to do everything you can to keep that from not coming up.
Yes.
But then it's like once you actually get it out, the relief you feel,
Whoa,
you get your
that's crazy.
appetite back. You're like, oh, I'm
You mean,
good.
like, when you throw up.
What do you mean
Yes.
this is not good? You
This
just
is
said this
so
is a terrible
good.
example. I'm like, what are you
You
talking
know,
about?
but I think like anxiety is like that. It's that feeling of like nauseous, and you're trying to keep all your emotions down because it is pretty painful to get them all out there. But once you do, it's like you're free.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think this is
Especially
what
when you're safe.
yeah, when
with
you're
a
safe.
safe person,
Yeah.
which the Father is a safe person, the safest place by far. But I think I'm thinking in my story, what's kept me in that place is not always being in the safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
But when in my marriage today, I'm thinking like as you're talking, I'm like, oh, it's so many of those moments are so relieving and so healing to be received in that place. It's crazy. The relief is crazy.
Yeah, and I think like that's what I love, where it's like when Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." It really reminds me of like, hey, those who are weary and burdened, come to me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart. And he's basically saying, I'm the safest person you can bring all of your stuff to. And it's like, I will be gentle with you, and I'll like, yeah, he's like, my heart is to deal gently with anything, you know. And I even love how, like, let's say it's sin, you're so afraid to confess your sin, to mourn over your own humanity with God, you know. And how he says like, it's his kindness that leads us to repentance. And I love that, where it's like, he's not like, it's my discipline that leads you to repentance. He's like, I long to be kind and gentle to you in every aspect that you're going through. And I think that is so beautiful, because I love that he says, blessed are those who mourn, for they're going to feel better. Like, you know what I mean? He's just like, I'm going to be there to comfort you. Like, the reward is him near. You know, not just like even the relief of feeling better, but there is a relief of like, wow, I'm taken care of. Like, and I think that that's just so beautiful of God. It makes me love him so much more, because I'm like, he actually really desires to comfort me, and not to be like, wow, you should have worn this a long time ago, sis.
right.
You know, it's like, he's just like not condemning like that,
Right.
you know?
Before we get into handlebars, I wanted to ask you, Ref, you were talking about how something shifted for you and you were able to come to him, whereas for, I don't know how long, but probably years, you had numbed something or lots of things. Okay, so what happened? Like, what shifted? Because I think people are going to be asking, well, how do I do that?
For me, what happened was I moved here.
So it was first obedience.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
So would you say when you moved here to Dallas, to the upper room, did you have a shutdown heart?
I was in the most shut down place I've ever been.
Wow.
In the moment that I moved here.
Wow.
And I was disappointed about so many things.
Your heart is so open that this Rafi that you're talking about sounds so foreign to me.
I know.
You know who one of the only people that really knows is, well, some people that knew me then, but then also Trace will be able to tell you, because when he first interviewed me, I was so in a different place.
If you don't know who Trace is the director of the school of ministry that Rafi was coming to.
Yes. And so what, to me, in hindsight, if I could think about that season, what happened was I got alone. I was in a city where there was no one that I knew. It was during the shutdown. And in New York, when I was in the shutdown, I was with people every day. We were like, I never was shut down. I was like in the COVID sense. I was like hanging out with people and doing things.
Because that's how you could numb.
Oh yeah,
I
mean,
can relate to that. You can fill your
yeah.
schedule and your time to where you're pouring out to people, you're around people, and you never experience you're never faced with what's going on in your own heart.
Yeah, not until you slow down.
That's what you're saying.
And I wouldn't have even been able to tell you with clarity like what was wrong. I knew, oh yeah, I'm like a little off, but it was in this moment where I move in. Just everything came to the surface because I was by myself and I was going crazy. I was going crazy.
So as soon as you were by yourself, you were like going
yeah.
crazy.
I was having thoughts. I was having like the worst temptations of my life.
Yeah.
It was just like awful. All of this stuff was coming up to the surface, and it drove me to the place of like need. And I just said to God, like, I know this is not why you brought me here, to be in this type of headspace and emotional like turmoil. This is not why you brought me here. And I felt like with whatever way I could hear God, he was like, you need to fast. And so I fasted this one day, and that day I had this wild encounter with the Lord. It was a Wednesday in the prayer room. The conversation I was having with God was he was just highlighting all these different areas of my life where I had done well and where there was disappointment. And he was like, I want everything. I want everything. And so, it's hard to describe what that's like. Like, I was in such a place of desperation that I just pushed all the things I was proud of and all the things I was so not proud of and so upset about. I just really, like, internally pushed them all in. And
so you were poor in spirit, and then you let yourself mourn.
Yeah, truthfully, yeah. And then I just...
Isn't it interesting that's the...
That's
one
order.
and two.
That's very
That's
interesting, yeah.
Yes.
Be poor in spirit
that
and
day
mourn.
that day in the prayer room completely changed like the trajectory for my heart. Like
Wow.
I went down on the ground, and at one point I just started to feel the presence of God in that exchange, and it was like it was like 10 a.m. or something, and I blinked and it was 8:30. And
At night?
Oh yeah. It was crazy, and it like set me off in this season where I was like constantly aware of the presence of God for probably 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And I was just like, what is happening? I was hearing from God all the time. I was
You got born
going
again.
home from
Again.
parties. Yes, that's what it was like.
Again and again and
And that's
again.
what this can feel like when your heart's so shut down, and then it's
Yeah.
I was so tender. It was like the stony heart was ripped off, and there was tender flesh under there. And it was like you could say anything about Jesus, and I was a mess. I was a complete mess. And so
I think this is the Rafi I met.
this is when I met all of you.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember being your T
Transformation
group
group.
leader.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
was your school
during
leader.
that time, and I remember you talking about like, I'm in this place with the Lord that you had never been before, and you were like, I literally just am able to sit with God for hours in my apartment, and I'm like, I remember being honestly a little jealous of you in that time. It's like, man, I remember those. Anyway, that's beautiful, Rafi.
So okay, let's.
No,
yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean that was the story, and I think it's important to say that when we say stuff like the reward is nearness, it's not like that's not a small thing. We're not saying like, yeah, you know, your thing might not change, but like nearness is also cool. It's like I can confidently tell you when he comes near to you, you stop caring about what you cared about. It just he becomes realer than anything else.
Yeah.
That was real to you before, and it's like truer than if he came and fixed everything in my life. I would never trade.
You found comfort.
I would never trade him going and fixing all the things that I was hurt about for the season that I spent with the Comforter. I would never trade it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think if you would have never experienced that season, you wouldn't have freedom in areas of your life that you have freedom?
Oh
now?
yeah, it was like a
Layers and layers.
it was the
and
beginning
layers.
of like a crazy journey for me.
What I'm thinking, what are handlebars for mourning? Like someone's hearing this conversation and they're like, "Oh gosh, I have a locked up heart.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm dominated by anxiety. Oh gosh, I'm, I think we've said on the podcast plenty of times, and I know I've said it preaching, I've heard all of us say it in conversations where we are big fans of counseling. I mean, we go to marriage counseling, we've done personal counseling.
Especially when you feel stuck.
But sometimes what I have noticed in the church that I'm very, very bothered by is this, anxiety is normal today. Anxiety, go to counseling, and, people who are preaching free from anxiety haven't faced it. And I'm, like, ready to fight that thing.
I hear people say way too often, my anxiety.
And I'm like, that is not your lot.
No.
That is not the gospel that I read in my Bible. Mm-hmm. That is not the Jesus I know. And I mean, we're
talking here about like crippling.
Yeah,
can't explain it, anxiety.
Yeah, and it's just
because I want to acknowledge there's also like an emotion anxiety.
Yes.
Where you will be like walking with Rosie, and you might see like a car, and she leaves your hand, and you like have this moment as a dad where you're
cortisol
like,
spike.
I need to do something to like keep her from this car.
Yeah, there's a sense of urgency that can feel anxious,
and that's healthy.
Yeah, I'm talking about anxiety
but
that is
like
it's the nauseous thing Alyssa talked about in the soul, the soul nausea of like, oh my goodness. I almost like in this conversation, I'm thinking about the gift God has given us in mourning. And I'm thinking about, here's a small way we practice mourning, and it's in parenting. That our kids are, Shepard was in love and obsessed with Olaf and Kristoff from Frozen. And in a day, it became Spider-Man. Literally in a day, we went from a season of Frozen to Spider-Man. Which for me, I'm like, yes, like I've been waiting for this my whole life. But then I've noticed for Sarah Beth, it's not, yes, we've been waiting for this my whole life. I mean, there's probably tears coming in your eyes now.
It's so annoying.
That Kristoff and Frozen, there's a goodbye we've had to say to them.
There's lyrics to a song that we sing all the time when we need to mourn a little bit. And it's, sometimes growing up feels like goodbye. And I'm like, man, that's, for parents, sometimes your kid growing up, it feels like goodbye.
Yeah, so...
Because you'll never get them like that again. And it's not somewhere to stay and sulk over. But it is something to be like, I could either shut this down and just keep trucking along, and it's going to hit me 15 years down the road and be a lot harder than it is now. Or I could, when I put them to bed, come into the living room and talk to Aaron about how I'm feeling and cry a little bit.
You ride those waves of mourning as they come.
Yeah. And that's a small example, parenting.
But we'll be in the middle of a day, middle of a great day, great experience, and all of a sudden from like watching our 2.5-year-old like lifting up his Spider-Man going, Spidey, 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 and you're excited and you're laughing, all of a sudden here comes a wave of mourning where you go.
You look at a picture.
You think of Kristoff, you think of Olaf, which is such a silly example, but all of a sudden you find your heart processing the pain of your child growing. And what we've learned to do is in that moment, that's the language I'm feeling, and sensing on the inside of me is it's like a wave that you have to let yourself ride, or if you don't, it will hit you later.
It will hit you later, and most of the time when it happens for us, it's when we are on a trip and we have we're away from our normal day-to-day life. Like I'm thinking of Ireland a couple years ago. We were in Ireland. My mom was hanging out with our kids in the other room, and we were getting ready to go to bed. And Aaron just grabbed my hand, and he was like, Rosie asked me to play restaurant with her today on the little path. But the house we're staying at, and she goes, and the next time we bring her here, she's not going to want to play restaurant. And he just started bawling, and then I start bawling. Yeah. So it's like when you get alone, what you were saying, when you get, like you're not in your day-to-day go, you get alone, everything quiets down. Ireland's the perfect place for it.
Your emotions go like that.
Yes,
you're
your
like,
emotions
I'm vibrating
start
on the
up.
inside.
Yes, and our example is parenting and grieving your kids growing up, but there's obviously so many examples of mourning.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a key, and my handlebar will be get alone for 24 hours if you can. I know that some people can't do that, but like try to spend a day or a few hours completely by yourself. And your key or your light bulb, if that is hard for you, then that's a light bulb that something is off.
Did you say get alone with God?
Yes, with God, because you're going to be with God. But like get alone. Don't hang out with anyone. Yeah. Don't fill your day. Because I know for me, when I have a lot going on that I don't want to process, I'm thinking, which honestly is really selfish for the person I'm asking to hang out with. Think about that. Yeah. You're like, who could I hang out with to numb the pain? And you're like, you don't care about hanging out with them or talking with them. Maybe you do a little,
You just
but
don't
really
wanna feel
deep
what you're
down, you
feeling.
just don't want to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
So I would say my handlebar is get alone.
Yeah.
That's really good. I think for me, something I would say is a verse that helps me is Philippians 4:6, where it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind through Christ." I just want to say, like, when you're dealing with anxiety because of your own avoidance, this scripture is the antidote. Prayer, like actually talking to God. Like, if that means you need to, like, for me, something that helps me talk to God is I write out my prayers in a prayer journal. Like, I will write out what I'm feeling, and I will sit there until I feel like I've prayed it. Sometimes that doesn't help. Sometimes I'm writing and I'm realizing I'm just doing the thing, and I actually have to put my journal away, and I have to use my voice, like hear myself speaking to God, and the things that come out is like, oh my gosh, like I did not know all of this was in here. And so I would say use your words and pray. I think that's another thing. It's like the antidote for these things is real, and it's in here. And I think, like, I love what you're saying, Sarah Beth, because it really is like finding the way that you connect with God. If that's being alone for 24 hours, when you're like, man, I need to give some serious thought to this chunk of stuff in my heart, then do that. I've had to do that. And also, like, a regular rhythm of using your words and talking to God out loud, like in the car, on your way to work, like on your way home, like before you get home and you're irritated with everyone you're about to see, tell the Lord about how irritating your day was on that drive. It will change the atmosphere when you get home. You won't feel like you need to, like, also go into your closet and shut your family out. Like, you will have actually given him everything that made you anxious. And it says that his peace will guard your heart and mind. And I don't know about you, I'm not a good guardian of my own heart, my own mind, but Christ is. And so when I bring him all the things that I wasn't able to guard myself from, he guards me. And the answer is here. And I think that's been the biggest game changer for my life is praying. Like, just period, you know?
That's so good. I think one thing that I'm picturing as you're talking is like, but as both of you are talking, is your example about how anxiety feels like nausea. And in my head, I was like, almost like how Inside Out personifies emotions. I was thinking, like, down here, if this is your feeler or whatever, it's like when you have sadness or disappointment or grief, it's like it wants to get out. And if you just leave it there, that's kind of what it feels like. It's like it's shaking and bouncing all over, like, let me out of here. And then, of course, you feel nauseous. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, that is literally how it feels like this needs to get out. And then there's an immediate relief when you do it. And my handlebars are really what you guys are saying. So what I'm going to do is give a scripture, which is Psalm 62. And I've actually encountered the Lord a lot in these 4 verses, where it says, "For God alone my soul waits in silence, for my hope is from him." And I feel like this is such a key from David, where he's saying, I find hope in silence with God. There's something on the other side of silence where I meet with God in a way where I'm filled with hope. And then the verses in between are good too, but the verse 8 says, "Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him, because God is a refuge for us." And so you're coming into the truth that he's a refuge and a safe place when you pour out your heart before him, like liberally, like what Elyssa's saying, like just start talking. And I got advice from a pastor once who told me, when dirty water is coming out of a sink, you don't shut it off. You let it run until it runs clean. And then he let me, that one day, this is another time where I was feeling anxious, he let me just talk. And it was crazy how the presence of God filled the room as I just started to externalize my anxiety before, like, a pastor or I was actually mad at him. And he just told me, like, just talk. and he met me so well in that. But I think there's so much truth to what you may think is something that's yours, that's plaguing you, is actually trying to get out. And there's these spaces where God has given us these gifts of like prayer and these psalms and Sabbath. I mean, truthfully, a lot of what you're talking about is in the lifestyle of Sabbath, of just these sacred spaces that are separated. I know for me, Sabbath is where sometimes these things come up because I created space. So then it's like my heart is like, hey, you're actually angry about this. And I would say, do what Sarah Beth said, do what Elissa said. Also a journal, just like what I would call an honest prayer, which is just like stream of consciousness prayer, of just to identify where you are. If you're confused, you're like, I don't even know what's wrong. Just write until you start seeing like, oh, wait, this is what I'm thinking about. And one last thing I'll say is Jesus did this. One day there will be no more mourning. Tears will be wiped away. This is not a forever reality, because things that are mourn worthy will stop happening to us one day. Wow. But in this moment, we have this relationship where we mourn and we're comforted by God, and it's not forever. But Jesus did this. He wept over Lazarus. He wept over Jerusalem, and he was met by the Comforter. He prayed in the garden, and he was a mess, but he brought his feelings, his emotions, his thoughts, his doubts, his fears, all to the Father. And he did this. He showed us how to do this exchange. So it's my handlebar.
I love it.
Amazing.
You know, I'm thinking about mourning, and I'm thinking about, blessed are those who are comforted. And you had mentioned tears earlier. And I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, but I feel like in the last couple of years, what I've realized is how God treasures our tears. I'm really learning how that's the desire of his heart. You know, David says in Psalm 51, you do not desire sacrifice or offerings, or else I would bring it to you, but the desire of God is a broken and contrite heart. Here Jesus is saying, blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the poor in spirit. And in Psalm 56, it says, you put my tears into a bottle. And I've had this encounter with the Lord where I've seen him catching all of my tears, putting them in a bottle, and putting them in like a sacred chest in heaven. And like I have this like picture, this vision that there's coming this day where I'm with the Lord face to face, and he's like, Aaron, come here. I want to show you something. And he takes me to this room, and in this room is this treasure chest that he values deeply, and he opens it up, and within there is all these vials of tears. And he's like, look how I caught every single one of them. And tears is one of those things where, you can't force yourself to cry. You can't, unless you're an awesome actor. But you can't force yourself to cry. It's from the presence of God touching your heart, or from you, navigating the depths of the pain you're feeling internally. Oftentimes the overflow is tears. But I would say when you get alone, when you talk to God, what I heard you saying, Rafi, was soul flushing. You begin to flush out your soul. You begin to flush out everything that's in there. You fleshed it out that day with that pastor, that leader. Then you're talking about honest prayers, like flushing out what's honestly inside of you. And you get to that chasm of what's really going on the inside. Oftentimes, what you'll find is tears. Yes. And I'm finding that tears before the Lord are the great malice that keeps my heart tender. It's the great, confronter of pain. It's the great confronter of... tears in itself are healing balm. And I always kind of, with myself, with the Lord, with Sarah Beth, you know this, but if it's been a while since I've cried before the Lord, I know I really need to sit with him. Mm-hmm. And I've found myself in worship sets or in services or other places where I'm telling the Lord things like, God, a sign of a connected heart to you, oftentimes for me, is tears running down my face. That's when I'm reading the Word and tears meet my face. Why? Because I'm with Him. Mm-hmm. That is oftentimes the overflow, the sign, the indicator. Wow, God, you're touching my heart. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage you, when you get alone, when you sit with God, when you flesh out your soul, to ask the Lord for the gift of tears, for fresh tears. What do I mean by that? If you're like, what does that mean? It means letting your heart feel and letting it flow through your eyes, crying with God. I grew up, I think I've shared this before, but I grew up where it was men don't cry, dry your eyes, boy, type thing. Just from all kinds of men in my life. And what I'm learning is God created tear ducts for a reason. not because he wanted us to learn to turn them off, because he wanted them to work. And so that's my handlebar. Get with God and read Matthew 5. So blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I hope this helps. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.